There's something happening right now that most guys completely miss. They're watching opportunities slip away, connections fade, and relationships turn cold, and they have no idea why. They're doing everything they think they're supposed to do. They're being kind, attentive, caring, and present. They're texting back quickly, making themselves available, and putting in consistent effort. On paper, they're doing everything right. So why does it keep falling apart? The uncomfortable truth is that most men are sabotaging themselves without even realizing it. They're operating on outdated advice that sounds good in theory, but destroys attraction in practice. They've been taught that more effort equals better results, that constant availability shows genuine interest, and that being agreeable makes them attractive. But these beliefs are quietly killing their chances before things even get started. This isn't about women being complicated or playing games. It's about understanding fundamental human psychology that governs how people actually respond to different behaviors. When you understand these underlying patterns, everything changes. You stop feeling confused, stop second-guessing yourself, and start moving through interactions with genuine confidence because you finally understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. Right now, you're probably experiencing frustration that you can't quite explain. You meet someone who seems interested at first, the early conversations flow easily, there's laughter, connection, and what feels like real chemistry. Then something shifts. Her responses get shorter. She takes longer to reply. Plans become harder to nail down. And eventually, she just fades away entirely. You replay every conversation in your head trying to figure out what you said wrong, but nothing stands out. That's because the problem isn't usually one big mistake. It's a pattern of small behaviors that gradually erode attraction without you noticing. Most guys respond to this confusion by doing more of what already isn't working. They text more frequently, hoping to reignite the connection. They become even more accommodating, more agreeable, and more available. They start planning elaborate dates and grand gestures to prove their interest. But instead of bringing her closer, these efforts push her further away. The harder they try, the colder she becomes. It feels backward and frustrating because it goes against everything they've been told about relationships. The issue isn't your effort level, it's your approach. You're treating attraction like a logical transaction where input equals output. You believe that if you give enough, she'll naturally reciprocate. But attraction doesn't work that way. It operates on completely different principles that have nothing to do with fairness or logic. Understanding these principles is what separates men who consistently build strong connections from those who keep hitting the same wall over and over. Let me walk you through what's really going on and how to fix it. This isn't theory or guesswork. These are observable patterns that show up consistently in how people respond to different types of behavior. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once you adjust how you operate, the results speak for themselves. The first pattern is about how you distribute approval. Every interaction involves an exchange of validation. When you give someone a compliment, respond enthusiastically to their messages, or show obvious excitement about seeing them, you're handing over a piece of validation. There's nothing wrong with this in moderation. The problem happens when you give validation freely without any real reason. When every selfie gets a fire emoji, when every mundane story gets an enthusiastic response, and when you're constantly affirming someone who hasn't done anything to earn it, your approval loses all meaning. Think about it from a different angle. If someone handed you a $100 bill every time you walked past them, how would you feel about that money after a week? You'd stop valuing it because it requires nothing from you. It's just always there, always available, with no effort required. The same thing happens with your attention and approval. When it's constantly flowing, regardless of her behavior, it becomes wallpaper. It's just background noise she stops noticing. This doesn't mean you should be cold or withholding. It means your positive feedback should connect to something real. Instead of complimenting her appearance every single day, acknowledge when she does something thoughtful. Notice when she makes an effort or shows genuine character. Respond enthusiastically when she brings positive energy into the interaction. This creates a completely different dynamic where your approval actually means something because it's tied to her actions, not just her existence. When you make this shift, something interesting happens. She starts paying attention to what earns your positive response. She begins showing up differently because she realizes your validation isn't automatic. This isn't manipulation. It's simply human nature. We all respond more consciously to feedback that feels earned rather than guaranteed. The second major pattern involves how you allocate your time and energy. Most guys operate from a place of scarcity without realizing it. They're so grateful someone is showing interest that they rearrange their entire life to accommodate her schedule. They drop plans with friends when she texts. They stay up late having meandering conversations that go nowhere. They're available at any hour for any reason because they're terrified that setting any boundary will push her away. This approach broadcasts a message you definitely don't want to send. It tells her that you don't have much going on, that your life isn't particularly full or interesting, that you're willing to deprioritize everything else for someone you barely know. Instead of making her feel special, it makes her question your value. She starts wondering why someone with so few demands on his time is even worth her attention. Compare that to someone who has clear priorities and protects his time accordingly. He's present and engaged when you're together, but he's not constantly available for endless text exchanges. He makes plans in advance because his schedule fills up. He doesn't drop everything at the last minute because he has commitments he honors. This doesn't make him unavailable or distant. It makes him someone whose time actually has value because there's real demand for it. The shift here is subtle but powerful. You're not playing hard to get or pretending to be busy. You're actually building a life that's genuinely full and engaging. You're investing in your work, your health, your friendships, and your personal growth. When your calendar naturally fills up with meaningful activities, you don't have to fake being unavailable. You actually are. And that scarcity makes the time you do offer significantly more valuable. The third pattern is about predictability and how it kills tension. Relationships need some degree of comfort and stability to thrive long term, but they also need spark. They need moments of uncertainty, surprise, and anticipation. When someone can predict exactly what you're going to say, exactly how you'll respond, and exactly what you'll do in any situation, the dynamic flattens. There's no excitement because there's no discovery left. This happens when guys fall into rigid routines too quickly. They text good morning at the same time every day. They ask the same questions. They suggest the same types of dates. They become completely readable within a few weeks. Everything feels safe, but nothing feels exciting. The initial curiosity that drew her in evaporates because there's nothing left to be curious about. Maintaining some mystery doesn't mean being shady or withholding information. It means not front-loading your entire life story in the first conversation. It means varying how you interact instead of falling into mechanical patterns. It means having dimensions to your personality that reveal themselves gradually as trust builds. When you're genuinely engaged in pursuits outside the relationship, you naturally have things happening that she doesn't know about yet. That creates organic curiosity and keeps the dynamic alive. The fourth pattern is about how you respond to negative behavior. This is where most guys completely lose the plot. When drama appears, when she gets moody, when she throws out passive-aggressive comments or creates conflict, the typical response is to rush in and fix it. Guys will spend hours trying to smooth things over, apologizing for things they didn't do, and walking on eggshells to restore peace. They think they're being mature and relationship focused, but they're actually training her to use drama as a tool to get attention. Here's how it works. If calm, positive interactions get a moderate response from you, but emotional outbursts and manufactured conflict get your full focus and energy, you've created a reward system for chaos. She learns that the fastest way to command your attention is to create a problem. This isn't usually a conscious calculation, it's just pattern recognition. The behavior that gets the biggest response is the behavior that gets repeated. Breaking this cycle requires a completely different approach. When drama appears, you don't match it with anger or defensiveness. You also don't reward it with frantic attention. You stay calm, set a clear boundary, and remove your presence until things settle. You're not punishing her or playing games. You're simply refusing to engage with behavior that doesn't meet your standards. When she returns with calm, respectful communication, that's when she gets your full positive attention. This creates a completely different incentive structure. Chaos gets met with distance, maturity gets met with warmth and engagement. Over time, the pattern shifts because you've changed what gets rewarded. This is one of the most powerful tools available to you because it doesn't require arguments, lectures, or trying to change someone. You just quietly adjust what you respond to and let the results speak for themselves. The fifth pattern involves understanding tests and what they actually mean. At some point in any developing relationship, you're going to face moments that feel like challenges. She'll question your intentions, push back on something you said, or create a scenario that seems designed to see how you react. These aren't attacks, they're assessments. She's checking whether you're actually as solid as you appear, or whether your confidence is just a performance that crumbles under pressure. Most guys fail these tests by getting defensive. They over-explain, they justify themselves endlessly, or they get angry at being questioned. All of these responses communicate insecurity. They show that her opinion of you matters more than your own self-assessment. Passing these tests doesn't require elaborate responses or clever comebacks. It requires staying grounded. When she questions something, you address it calmly and directly without spiraling into defensive mode. When she pushes a boundary, you hold it firmly without getting emotional about it. The message you're sending is simple but powerful. You know who you are, your standards don't change based on someone else's mood, and you're completely unbothered by attempts to shake your foundation. That unshakable quality is what builds genuine respect and deepens attraction. It shows you're not performing confidence. You actually possess it. The sixth pattern is about how you value your own schedule and commitments. There's a huge difference between being flexible and being a pushover. Flexibility means you can adjust when something important comes up. Being a pushover means you rearrange everything at a moment's notice because you're afraid to say no. When you constantly accommodate last-minute changes, cancel your own plans to fit her schedule, and treat your time like it has no structure, you're communicating that your life bends around other people's convenience. High-value people protect their time because they understand it's their most finite resource. They make plans in advance. They honor commitments they've made. They're happy to find time that works for both people, but they don't treat their schedule like an empty calendar waiting to be filled. This isn't about being rigid or difficult. It's about having enough self-respect to structure your life around your own priorities first. When you operate this way, something shifts in how people approach you. They start respecting your schedule because you respect it. They plan ahead because they know you're not always available at the last second. And they value the time you do give them because it's clearly not unlimited. This single shift can transform your entire dynamic because it repositions you from someone grateful for any attention to someone whose time is genuinely valuable. The seventh and final pattern is about maintaining composure when everything around you gets chaotic. In any interaction, especially as things get more emotionally involved, there will be moments of tension, conflict, or heightened emotion. How you handle these moments determines whether you're leading the dynamic or being tossed around by it. Most guys lose their composure the second things get uncomfortable. They raise their voice, get visibly flustered, or match chaotic energy with more chaos. The alternative is to become the stabilizing force. When emotions run high, you slow down. You lower your voice instead of raising it. You maintain steady eye contact. You refuse to get pulled into reactive behavior. This doesn't mean you're cold or dismissive. It means you're grounded enough to stay calm even when the situation isn't. That composure is magnetic because it creates safety. It shows you can handle pressure without falling apart. This is about emotional regulation, which is one of the most attractive qualities someone can possess. When you can stay centered regardless of what's happening around you, you become someone others naturally want to be around. You're not adding fuel to fires. You're not escalating tension. You're creating an environment where things can actually get resolved instead of spiraling out of control. Now, here's what ties all of this together. None of these patterns are about controlling someone else or playing psychological games. They're about self-mastery. They're about understanding how your behavior shapes the dynamics you experience and taking full responsibility for the standards you set. When you stop giving away validation for free, protect your time, maintain some mystery, refuse to reward drama, stay grounded during tests, value your schedule, and remain calm under pressure, you're not manipulating anyone. You're simply becoming someone who respects himself enough to expect respect in return. The transformation this creates is profound. You stop feeling like a passive participant hoping someone chooses you. You start operating as someone with clear standards who's evaluating whether someone is a good fit for your life. That shift in perspective changes everything. You're no longer chasing, you're no longer anxious, you're simply moving through your life with purpose and allowing people to either rise to your standards or self-select out. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes conscious effort to break old patterns and build new ones. But the process starts the moment you decide you're done accepting low standards from yourself and others. Look at your current situation honestly. Where are you giving away leverage? Where are you compromising your self-respect because you're afraid of losing someone's interest? Those are the exact areas where you need to make adjustments. Start small. Pick one area and focus on it until the new behavior becomes natural. Maybe you start by being more selective with compliments. Maybe you build better structure into your schedule. Maybe you practice staying calm the next time conflict appears. Each small change compounds over time, and before long, you're operating from a completely different foundation. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's becoming more aware of the patterns you're creating and more intentional about the behaviors you're rewarding. When you get this right, relationships stop feeling like puzzles you can't solve. They become clear, straightforward dynamics where you understand what's happening and why. You stop wondering if you're doing enough and start knowing you're showing up as your best self. And that confidence, that self-assuredness is what makes everything else fall into place naturally. Act as a professional YouTube scriptwriter and storyteller. I will paste a competitor's script, analyze its topic, hook, storytelling style, emotional flow, and audience interest, then create a 100% original script based on the same core idea. Never copy, paraphrase, or reuse the competitor's wording, characters, examples, or story. First, provide 1 high CTR title, 3 alternative titles, 1 thumbnail text, 8-9 words, then write a 2,500 word script in simple, natural English that feels written by a real human. Create a fresh hook every time, inspired by the competitor's hook structure and emotional impact, but completely original. Keep the story content engaging, emotional, easy to understand, and curiosity driven from beginning to end. Add realistic examples, smooth transitions, emotional moments, and a satisfying ending. Rules: no channel name, no headings, no chapters, no bullet points, no scene directions, no robotic language, no unnecessary filler. End with a natural and meaningful conclusion. Most men are failing in modern dating, but it isn't because they aren't trying hard enough. In fact, most guys are trying way too hard. They pour endless energy into chasing, texting, pleasing, and accommodating, only to end up stuck in the friend zone, constantly ghosted, or caught in exhausting emotional cycles. The fundamental issue is that they are operating with effort instead of strategy. They believe that being perpetually available, agreeing with everything, and showering a woman with endless devotion is the key to her heart. In reality, that behavior comes off as needy, predictable, and desperate. When you don't have a clear framework for how human nature works, you become entirely reactive. You let her moods, her text response times, and her sudden shifts in energy dictate your emotional state for the entire day. To win in today's dating landscape, you have to transition from a man who reacts to a man who leads. Leadership in a relationship isn't about being bossy, controlling, or aggressive. It's about being grounded, intentional, and clear about your standards. Most men mistake devotion for desperation. They think that putting a woman on a high pedestal before she has even earned a place in their life is a sign of respect. It isn't. It's a sign that you don't value your own time, energy, and presence. Today, we are breaking down the 7 predictable behavioral patterns that show up in modern dating so you can finally stop guessing. Stop overanalyzing every single interaction and start moving with absolute confidence. Let's get one thing straight right out of the gate. This is not about bashing women, nor is it about adopting cheap, toxic tricks to play mind games. Guys who rely on manipulative tactics are just hiding their insecurity behind a temporary mask, and that always crumbles eventually. True value isn't a mask you wear, it's a standard you live by. This breakdown is about understanding human psychology, behavioral incentives, and the subtle dynamics that actually drive attraction and respect. When you truly grasp how human nature operates, you no longer feel the urge to manipulate or trick anyone. You simply set high standards for how you treat yourself and how you expect others to treat you, and you move through the world like a man who knows his worth. Mastering these 7 patterns gives you complete authority over your own emotional landscape. Right now, when a woman pulls back, delays a reply, or drops a passive-aggressive comment, your gut instinct is probably to panic. You over-explain, you send long paragraphs, or you frantically scramble to fix a problem that didn't even exist in the first place. Once you understand these core dynamics, that chaos completely disappears. You stop treating routine behavioral shifts as major emergencies. Instead of spiraling out of control, you stand firm, hold a calm boundary, and allow the moment to settle without losing your cool. You stop begging for validation or asking for permission to be respected because your steady presence speaks for itself. Here is the exact roadmap for what we are tackling today. First, we are dissecting the validation economy. Why handing out free unearned compliments instantly tank your value, and how to make your praise carries actual weight. Second, we are diving deep into the attention trap, exposing how over-delivering your time smothers attraction, and how to calibrate your focus so your presence is felt and valued. Third, we will unpack why predictability kills the spark and how maintaining your own drive and personal mystery keeps the relationship dynamic alive. From there, we are going to cut off the supply line to unnecessary drama. You will learn why rewarding emotional outbursts only breeds more chaos and how to starve toxic patterns without ever raising your voice. Fifth, we are covering emotional tests, what they actually mean, why women use them subconsciously to check your strength, and how to pass them effortlessly without getting defensive or argumentative. Sixth, we will flip the scarcity switch so you can properly price your time, protect your schedule, and command natural respect. Finally, we are wrapping up with frame control, the ultimate secret weapon that proves why an unshakable calm posture will always outperform emotional noise every single time. If you are tired of running in circles, guessing what went wrong, and settling for dynamic where you constantly feel like you are chasing, this video is your blueprint. It's time to stop sleepwalking through your dating life and step into real clarity. If you're ready for the full upgrade, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with a brother who needs to hear the truth. Grab your notebook and let's jump straight into principle number 1. Make praise rare. If your praise is everywhere, it means absolutely nothing. Most men throw out cheap validation like flyers on a busy street corner, completely unaware of how much damage they are doing to their own dynamic. They shower a woman with constant unearned good morning texts, leave heart eyes on every single selfie she posts, and throw out endless compliments before she has even put in an ounce of effort or investment. To you, doing this feels polite, supportive, and romantic. You think you are showing her how much you care, but to her subconscious mind, you are completely destroying attraction. Attention and approval function exactly like a currency. Basic economics applies here. When the supply of a currency explodes, its value instantly hyperinflates and crashes to zero. If your praise is given away freely without any baseline condition, it loses all its weight and she stops placing any value on it. When you make your validation earned rather than automatic, your words suddenly carry massive weight and authority. You must remember a core rule of human behavior. You get more of whatever you reward. If you only praise her physical looks, her outfits, or her surface beauty, you are simply raising a performer who craves a stage and constantly looks for an audience to feed her ego. But when you reward her effort, her loyalty, her thoughtfulness, and her character, you invite her to step into being a real, genuine partner.